Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, good morning and welcome back to week 2 on the shuttle set build, and I hope you had a marvelous Christmas. We're in that weird week between Christmas and New Year's where nothing really ever gets done, but I'm going to continue to do some work here, and I have to tell you that having the weekend off didn't do great things for me because it let my imagination run wild, and this thing has just ballooned. It was going to be a simple case of showing some walls and stuff, but I think the project, if I'm not careful, the scope of it is going to go beyond my means. Over the weekend, over the Christmas, I was in contact with the man, the myth, the legend, Jeffrey Fink, and he did in fact find me an STL of a Mitchell camera, which is the 35mm film cameras that Paramount / Desilu / Paramount used in the production of 98, I don't know, a high majority of their TV productions. They were also used in Paramount movies, but you know, they weren't shooting a movie every day, so the equipment was used in their TV productions as well. And what I like about it is the stereotypical camera. When you think of a movie camera, it's got the big magazine with the Mickey Mouse ears on the top for the film canisters and the long lens and all that kind of stuff. So we're gonna work on getting a couple of those printed up at the right scale to work with this. I'm trying not to make it overly elaborate. I don't want this thing to be huge. I want it to be fairly well self-contained, but I'm gonna see about putting a couple of cameras down, maybe some studio lights, because we can use that to our advantage. But that is to come. Let me say. First thing I did this morning was I added a frame to the ceiling light, because looking at it, I thought what was provided was kind of flat. This will again go here and be attached. It struck me over the weekend, or earlier in the week, that I should take some of that screening, because this looks exactly like the plastic baffle stuff that you see in window treatments or ceiling light fixtures. And we're going to be able to shine a light down through there, and I think that's going to be fun. But it was white. So I'm going to put a piece of that in here. I've cut some little runners here to hold that in place. But I think the first thing I want to do is I want to paint this. I want to get a silver around this frame, and I want to be able to put this aside. So let's take care of that, and then we'll move on. I'm also thinking about today we need to recreate the front wall. Not going to use the kit part because, you know, that's a heck of an expensive kit to be sacrificing for just that front wall piece. So I think as far as the inside goes, we can cut this out of sheet stock, and I'm just going to have it off to the side. And of all the wonderful comments I read this week about the enthusiasm for this project and the wonderful ideas, I don't know if I'm going to go so far as to try to put wheels on all this stuff to make it mobile, because, and again, I have no inside knowledge of how exactly things were done. I'm only imagining and suggesting things. But what I am suggesting is that there might have been like wheels like you would use under like car dolly wheels. It would just be basically a frame with 4 wheels under it, like they put under cars or under heavy appliances, things like that. That you would set the model or the set wall on those dolly wheels and kind of dolly them out of the way and then take them off. I don't think that wheels would be permanently attached. So what I am also guessing is that this wall here, 2 men could pick it up and like set it off to the wall, and then when they need it, they will put it back and clamp it to the 2 sides of the set. I don't think it necessarily had its own set of wheels that it was wheeled around on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the kit part, because I do have another complete shuttle kit. take the front wall kit part and just basically trace it out on this so that I can have a rough approximation of it, and then we can start the fabricating. But I'm thinking the best way to attack this is basically from the ground up. So if you imagine that this is your set, you can say, okay, well, all we're going to do is set that on the set of the stage and go from there. And then someone says, well, we're going to need to have a hole in the floor so Scotty can reach down in there and do that thing with the phaser draining. And then some stagehand says, well, great, that means we got to lift the whole thing up about 2 feet so that we can have that hole for him to stick his hand down in, or his arm down in. Plus, there would be a ramp here that also, your actors would come in and out of. And somebody else accurately pointed out that when, I think it's in Galileo 7, when McCoy jumps up into the ship, he doesn't act as if he jumped up over this nacelle that would be down here. The ramp to the inside set, I don't think was as high up off of the stage floor as it would have been had there been a nacelle here, because you would have a ramp that goes out to the nacelle and then a step down. And the step down, I don't think you ever see it. They treat it as if the ramp is going to the ground and not to the nacelle and then a step. Alrighty, I'm back from the hobby shop. I was checking a reference on this on the inside of the windows because I'm working on this front wall, and I wanted to see. I had always thought that the mullions between the windows were fatter than that, so I'm glad I checked them. But that wall's going to go on like that. Actually, it's never going to be attached, but it's going to kind of rest off to the side as if it were there. And I was looking at the ceiling light and realized that even the piece that I added on here was too small. It actually needs to be like a square stock that sticks down. Now, I'm pretty sure they didn't do that only to increase the headroom in the kit, but the actors are all sitting in chairs, so I don't think it's going to be that much of a noticeable thing. So I'm just going to cut this thing off that I was cobbling together this morning. Luckily I didn't glue it down that well. I'll keep it. I'm sure it'll come in handy for something else. But I'm going to go ahead and cut up some of this square stock to increase the size of that. And then I can put the white framework inside. Okay, I think we've got the first prototype wall here, the first sample wall. This is doing what I'd like it to do. Of course, I've got the base set up so that it can sit on a level ground, and raise it up so that an actor could put his an arm through that hole. But this is kind of like what I am thinking the back walls would be. This mimics the segments that are on the inside of the wall. See how it's divided up into 4 sections there, and that is because that is the physical limitation of a 4x8 piece of plywood, or a 4x8 piece of either plywood or Luan, whichever one they would have used. But that's how the back of the set would go. Now, there is the curve. The way they would treat that curve is they would probably put a very thin Luan on the inside, or a cove molding, and the flat ceiling, once it sits on top of it like that, you would cove into the inside of it. So what I'm looking to do now is to clad the inside of, or the back side of the ceiling panel also in this material. Again, put it in camera. It would be to clad the back side of that in material. Now, this is probably the I'm going to say with some confidence, probably the easiest wall. So I have set myself up for a whole bunch of heartache since then. But you'll notice that the wall is progressively taller. The short side goes like that, and then it goes taller and taller, but the bottom side is a constant. So those would be the simple walls, and then these are going to be the custom walls since they have to carry the angle and the curve on it. I've got two pieces of balsa soaking in ammonia. They say we can use window cleaner, so that's what I'm using. It's soaking in the window cleaner so that I can wrap it on this edge and glue it down, and that will mimic the outside edge of the set here, of the curve of the bottom of the nose of the shuttle. That area right there. Okay, I think we've made great progress. I think we're ready to put down the first side's worth of flats here. That's what that would look like from the side. We can put these three pieces down, and I'm going to use some epoxy to do that. So that'll give me time to smash it around and position it. The one thing I've noticed about the CA is that balsa wood loves CA, and it'll dry it quick, fast, and in a heartbeat. So I don't have time to monkey around with the positioning of it. It has to be right dead on. So that's no bueno for how this is going. I need that the fudging around time. So I think 5-minute epoxy will do the trick. Maybe even 1-minute epoxy if I smear it thin enough. So we're ready to do that, and then these two front pieces will be custom made for each side. I've got the bottom piece wrapped around. I bent that, soaked it in some ammonia for a bit, and then dried it off, and then hit it with a heat gun. I kind of formed it and then hit it with a heat gun, and that kind of locked it in place, and then I clamped the devil out of it to hold it down. But that's working. So I think we go ahead and put these down, and that will help us along the way a lot further down the road to how we're going to do the other side. Okay, we got the last two sections on the front of this wall. I decided to finish this side off rather than starting to go around the back, just because this side was already pointing up and it's easier to work with, and I don't have to worry about knocking something off that I had already done. But these are the last two sections I need to glue down, and then I'll put this long strip over the top that is going to cover up this perfectly acceptable and natural seam. But in the business they call show, what they probably would have done would be to put a filler wedge in there and then just run some screws down between them to hold them together, or carriage bolts or something, depending on the permanence of the set. So these last two pieces are going to go down, and I did the fancy reinforcing on the front here. It's all strictly cosmetic, but that's what this whole thing is about, is strictly cosmetic. And then this will go on the front. Sorry, that will go on the front there at an angle. So, yay, all things looking good. And then we can give it a rest, because I've been at this all day. I mean, it's going very well, and I'm kind of in one of those zones where something is, once you get moving on something, you really don't want to stop, as evidence of the fact that I haven't had any lunch today. I just have been modeling right along, so I'm going to take an early break and celebrate my win for today. Now, I want to make sure that the back door is still working. I didn't want to bind up that control stick here on any of the epoxy that I was putting down. So yeah, that still works. And again, I expect tomorrow's to go even quicker now that I've kind of got this one in line. So we're gonna see. But yeah, this is how I was expecting it to go. Okay, here's where we are at the end of Monday. Now, I've got a heck of a lot done. Not so much as I was, maybe praying I would do, or thinking, wishing, hoping, and all of that stuff that I would do. But when you get down to brass tacks, it's a lot more than I probably should have expected to get done. I've got all of that side. I've got the undercarriage. I've got the riser done. And most importantly, I've got the brain work figured out for how to do this other side, so I can hopefully go quickly through that. Now, the reason I'm putting this up against this side is because this is going to have some bracing going up like this on all of the walls. But on this side, this is the open side for the camera. And so you would want to be able to get your camera up as close to it as possible. I still haven't done any sort of lighting in the front console, or if I'm going to do any lighting in these side consoles. Let's see how that would work. Because what I did is I cut holes on both sides of the walls so that I could put something up against there. You know, I think by the time I sand the top of those controls off, you might see something. But then I've got another one here that's going to light up the astrogator, or the main console. So that's something. I've got the ceiling. I got the new fascia or soffit for the light. I've got the screen in. That's going to attach something like that. And I'm going to light downward from that as if it were a lighting fixture. So that's going to be fun. That's going to give me some overhead lighting. But yeah, it's coming along. I think we're well on the way. Hey everybody, it's Tuesday. We're continuing work on the shuttle set, and I came to a realization. Didn't wake me up from a sound sleep, but these days I don't get a sound sleep. Anyway, that I was going on my merry way, thinking, yes, this is wonderful, I'm going to continue. And then I realized I need to start finishing the inside here, because I'm getting dangerously close to closing up some things, and I won't be able to get to them. Now, I'll certainly always be able to put the characters in the seats. I'm not worried about that. But I need to do things like wire in the console and do whatever I'm going to do with the detail on this back wall, like the computer console. So am I going to put decals over them, that kind of thing. I did come up with, well, see, this is where I think I don't know whether I showed you this yesterday or not. So if I did, I'll repeat myself. Here we are on the port side, or the starboard side, and I've gotten to the back wall. And here is the back wall that fits over the back here. Now, in the real world of a Hollywood set, of a TV set, you would have big C-clamps, big metal C-clamps that would hold the back wall on, or that would hold walls together that are meant to come apart. They wouldn't be screwed or bolted to each other. And I'm going to also be, after this is down on the set, I'm going to be using a series of of slanted braces, just to kind of show how everything would sit. And this, of course, would have a C-clamp here and then down here. But when you need to remove it, you would move the whole thing away. Now, people have asked if I'm going to put wheels on the wild walls. Well, they wouldn't always have wheels on them. They would have wheels on them temporarily while you're moving them. They would be lifted up onto wheeled dollies. I think I mentioned this before, like you would use to move appliances and things like that. And then you would move them, and then you take them off the wheels, and you move that dolly somewhere else where you needed it. You wouldn't leave a perfectly good set of wheels on a piece of stage setting. So you would take this off, lift it up onto something that had wheels, and then you would move it over to the side of the set while you were filming, and then you would put it back and re-bolt it. So that's how that would work. Also the roof, I have gone ahead. I've did a coat of paint on that this morning. The roof is ready to go down, but that would also be done the same way, where you would put clamps around here and every bit so that you could make this removable, but most of the time it would be clamped down. You would shine your studio lighting through here to light the set below, but if there was an instance where you needed to remove it, you would unbolt the C-clamps here and remove the whole thing. Also, I was thinking about how elaborate the surrounding was going to get. And while it's true, I want to do a couple cameras and some of the big Fresnel lighting, I'm not going to try to put whatever form of cage would be over top of this so that you would have your... I'm not going to build the whole studio is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to build the whole metal framework that would, the lights would hang off of and things like that. You have to stop somewhere. So we're gonna see how elaborate we get, but I can guarantee you that I'm not going to try to build the entire soundstage. And that brings me back to the last point of the day. The last point of the day before we get started is this wall and how much of it I am going to put on here, because while it's true that all of this wall would probably be removed for filming, I don't believe the front section of this wall would be. I just think there's too much to connect it to the front of the console to bother removing that. When they shoot through the front window, you see this wall. Even when they shot, when they shot from the back, you see that wall. Even when they shot in through the doorway, you saw some of that wall. So I'm pondering, plus I need it for a structural reason. When I put this down like this, I need to have a point of contact up at this front corner so that this can rest on it. So that's why I'm thinking that I am going to either cut this wall here or here along the seam. If I cut it along the seam, I can still put the front corner in. I can still put the front corner in, and that would give me this tiny bit here. Now, that only gives me the tiniest tip there. It doesn't give me a lot. So I'm thinking I may have to cut it here and put this front half of the wall in, and then just lets the rest of this be removable. But then what do I do about the door panels? See, the problem is I'm dealing with a small scale where, in the physical set design at full size, there might be some, steel rod or bolts or other fastening devices that I don't, that I'm not duplicating at this small a scale. So basically I'm thinking, if I cut that at that seam, what does that do to the stability of the door, and how do I handle the ramp? So that's where I'm at today. So I'm thinking that while I am pondering all of that, I should go ahead and work on the dashboard and get that situated. Get my mind off of the woodworking for a bit and go back to the plastic. Okay, I'm back. I have moved all of the woodworking tools off the bench right now because I want to put the decals on and start working on this console. I've got a gloss coat on it and it has dried, and now I put a gloss coat on it, but I'm not really worried about it frosting up the clear bits, because it's not really like this is a window or anything. It's okay for it to be frosted. I'm gonna put some lights behind it and everything will be good. Wanted you to see, first of all, Wayne, this is for you. I finally got this is for your merch on the map. I got my shirt in day before Christmas. The last shirt and the last mug came in, so I have my official World of Wayne wear on today. But I wanted to get my decaling accoutrements out and see how much trouble I can get into with that. As you can tell, I've got the console put together. This is just a big decal. Now I've got a couple of, where did it go? It's just what happens when I clean the table off. I clean the table off and I can't find a blessed thing now. I wanted to show you that I did have broke bad. I went ahead and cut this thing in two. I cut it on the back side of that, and I had a very good reason at the time, but right now I can't recall it because I'm busy looking for this and the battery wherever it might be, because I want to show you, here it is, I want to show you what this will look like. I'm going to put two of these on the driver or the co-pilot side. So we're going to get 2 of these in here of the color changing variety, and then we're going to put a solid white down in there and a solid white in there. So but yeah, 2 of those with a resistor on them. And the really great thing about this is I could be as sloppy as I want with the wiring, because it's just going to come out. Let's get this over here. The wiring is just going to come out of the front here and run out of the side of the set. So I can be as sloppy with that as I want. Okay, so the decals are in the very ugly wrinkled up stage, and I'm going to let that dry and let them settle down. I do have the first fruits off of the printer. Again, the marvelous Jeffrey Fink. Jeffrey has come up with a camera head and a typical light that I am printing in 3 different sizes. I think these will be the main stand lights, and I might do a row of these hanging from a scaffold or something. And then I just used a couple of Keith's figures that I had from the clipper that I have blown way up to the 1/32 scale. Now these are the Moonbase Alpha figures because they are the ones that were standing. They're not sitting. I don't have, I think maybe a director's chair is just one step too far, so we're gonna go with a figure standing next to a camera, and I need to make some sort of tripod for that, and do some lights, and we'll call it a day. But I'm loving how much detail even the smallest version was able to capture. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. Work is continuing on all of this. I wanted to take a second and show you the neat thing. This is something that I know I am not the first person by a long shot to discover this. It was because I had done such extensive reading and experimenting and all that in the realm of 3D printing in resin. The biggest problem is removing all the supports, and there are different schools of thoughts about when you do that. Do you when you take it out of the printer, do you wash it in your IPA and then remove the supports and then cure it, or do you wash it, cure it, then remove the supports? Do you never remove the supports until you're ready to actually build the thing? All of that kind of stuff. Well, I have found that what works best for me is to print something, to clean it off in IPA, to put it into the UV light. You know, make sure it's real dry first. After you take it out of the IPA, but before you put it in the UV light curing, dry it off very well, because that's where I was getting some of that cracking. It was because I was getting some impure alcohol still on the surface, and I was curing the impure alcohol, and I think that's what was causing the cracking. But be that as it may, once you've cured it in the UV light, leave it overnight with the supports on, and then come back the next day. And what I do is I just pop the whole thing into as hot a water as I can stand. Now, I don't boil it, I don't nuke it, I don't do any of that. It's as hot a tap water as you can get. And then you're able to simply twist it. And because you soak it in the hot water, and then of course you have to dry it again. But these are these lamps that I printed yesterday, and I've left them sit overnight. But you take something like that, look at that, just one little quick twist. You don't have to go in there and snip and snip and snip and snip. Now you still have some sanding to do, and you might have a little bit of X-Acto work you need to do, but it is a tremendous time saver from going in and having to physically go in and snip each one. Now, depending on your complexity of your shape, obviously it works better with basic geometric shapes, but I mean, I could spend 10 minutes going in here with X-Acto and doing all of the snipping, or a simple twisty, and then I've got one left, one little tiny support left here that I need to pop out. but it's something about hitting it in the hot water again. It reactivates or softens the narrowest part of the tip where it is, where your support is going into the object. That's the narrowest part. Well, look at that. Boing. So much better. So much better than all of the tedious snipping and all of that. Plus, the fact this has been sitting overnight means I'm not working with gloves. It's not... I don't have the alcohol to worry about getting all over me. I don't have to worry about wet, the resin itself being a problem. But it's taken me 2 minutes here, as long as I've been discussing this, to knock these off. Whereas, it would have taken a whole lot longer yesterday. But there you go. Just a little wiggle wiggle. I thought I would pass that along. Welcome back to Bracket Bending 101. Yes, I've got the metal tools out now. I had the woodworking tools out yesterday. I've got the metal tools out today. And luckily I still have a ton of this brass rod from the time machine build and other things. I still think there may be an instance where I might want to go out and pick up some more. Simply because what I would like to do on these big stands here for the lamps is I'm doing things like this. I'm bending brackets that the lamp would then go into, and then it would be, of course I could trim those, epoxy or CA them down, but something like that, and then into and then into a stand like this. So and anything, I think I'm still of the mindset to do all of mine as ground based. I may, and I say may, I may stop doing that. I may do an overhead just so that I can hang lamps down that would shine down into the open ceiling. I really don't want to get into anything that elaborate. I tell you what I could do. That might be my answer. I think what I could do is I'll go ahead and put the ceiling down, and then I will set some things that are big U's that would look like, they would look like that, only wider. And then I can hang the lights in that way. It keeps it off. Keeps me from having to build a complete sound stage. So while I'm doing all of this, while the flat coat that I painted on the decals that were on the console, I painted a flat coat over them, get rid of the shinies, and that's drying. So that's almost ready to go in. I'm ready to put the lights in today, and that's something I want to do so that I could button this up and get the ceiling put down and get this corner wall put in. I could once I get this center console in place and lit up and happy and yay, then I can put this piece on, and that will allow me to nail the ceiling down. So I've gotten the sequence right, but I'm like half Labrador, half goldfish here as far as my attention span, and I am zipping back and forth and trying to think about how I'm going to do the light stands and things like that, and I haven't even gotten that far yet. So I'm doing one of those today. So I need to what I need to do is focus and get rid of the stuff that's distracting me here, and concentrate on the stuff that I need to work on right now. Okay, so I was getting all of my lighting stuff out, getting my stuff prepared to work on just this piece right here, when I was struck by probably the oldest problem in the book as far as model making goes, and I'm sure many of you out there know what I'm talking about, and that is time management. Yes, it's a fancy word, fancy term, time management. It means woulda, shoulda, coulda, might as well. And my instance of time management issue here was, I'm going to be working on this for a while. I might as well put a primer coat on all of the lighting and cameras. That way they can be drying while I am working on the next step, which is, I'm trying to find my, never mind, which is getting all that stuff ready. But I can put a flat coat of black primer. Now these obviously, in a perfect world, I would have printed it in black resin, but this is far from a perfect world, and I printed it in the resin that I use, and I paint it black, so it's no big deal. But taking 2 seconds to hit everything with a primer coat, you can really see how much detail is on these cameras once you get the primer coat on there, and you're not looking at the pink resin anymore. These are going to be quite nice. I can dry brush a little bit of silverish or gunmetalish over that, and I think those are really going to pop. But I might as well let these be drying while I am working on the tedious lighting on the console. Not that I was trying to put off the tedious lighting on the console. Did I say it was tedious? But I can be managing my time better, and just like now, like I am stalling instead of getting ready for this. Actually, no, the soldering iron is warming up, and that takes some time. So let me move these off of the workbench and now finally get back to doing this. Okay, we're in for another self-enforced delay, and that was because I completely user error. I screwed up the center console. It was too many techniques. I don't even want to share it to you. That's how ugly it is. I think I'm not going to blame round 2. I'm not going to blame Polar Lights, but and here's where people might think I will. The whole idea of wrapping decals down around a multi-planed surface is troublesome at best, and the more elaborate the dimension, the harder it is to get decals to wrap down over that. So my hot take of the moment would be that either give me a flat piece of styrene and some decals, or don't give me the decals. That was the problem. The decals I put over top of the... First of all, you have to spray it with your paint, and then you do a light block because it's a clear piece. So that's already one layer of paint, or several, depending on how thick your light blocking is. And then you put the clear coat over that so the decal will suck down on all the nooks and crannies. And then you put your decal down, and hopefully it sucks down around all the nooks and crannies. And then you put a clear coat over top of that. So you're up, what, 6-7 coats of finish on top of that clear plastic piece. I don't know where it might have been better if they had... I'll show you this ugly piece. Whether they had just made this piece, hull colored, and put a clear insert here, and clear inserts for the three main gauges and this thing, and be done with it. It's certainly simpler to make it all one clear piece. The tooling exists for this. So I'm wondering how difficult it would have been to also provided a flat piece of clear that you could stick the decal over top of, and not this dimensional piece, or to make an actual piece that is dimensional but not clear, that you could pop down in place and then maybe cut out where you want to put your lighting, or them have an insert in it. I don't know. Would it have made any sense at all to actually just make that solid, put that piece in place as they're injecting it, but with the cutouts that you could have inserted from the back? I don't know. I didn't have as much of a problem on this guy, so I'm leaving that decal in place. Certainly this one was nearly flat, so that decal lays perfectly. It's just this one, and I noticed on the side computers that the the decal was very much raised. On the side computers, though, I did basically, I painted it and then sanded all the buttons off so that the light would come out through there. Something like that might have to happen here. I'm going to just dunk this in the some sort of thinner. Maybe I can clean all that piece off. I did what I didn't want to have to do. I have a second kit. I have a second full shuttlecraft with interior kit that I used the face plate from to get some dimensions for the plate that I'm going to build, but that's not using it. I mean, that's using it as a template, but not using it as in using it up. But I've gone into that other kit and I found the clear piece, and I have put some masking over the areas that I want to light, and it's done a pretty good light block on it. And I've sprayed some black primer on it, and it's light blocking very well. This is the Mission Models black primer, in case you're interested. And what I'm going to do is cut the decal out for just this bit. Then I'm going to dry brush the other details on here. I'm going to paint these three with a clear, to me a clear on it, even though it's like green and purple and a black in the center. I think I'm just going to paint those up with the clears that I've got. Maybe if I use some of the Mecha colors or some of this airbrush color, it'll be thin enough that you'll see the light shine through it at the proper color. But really it's the graphic of that I wish to keep. So I'm going to have to dip into the other decal sheet that's in the other kit to get that decal. Now I know, because I have talked to him, but I cannot guarantee when or where, that there is a photo etch set coming, and that photo etch set will have backlit film. And I'm presuming, again, I'm not speaking for anybody, and if you ask me who I'm talking about, I won't tell you, that this solution will present itself with that backlit film. So by the time comes that I want to build that other kit with the full interior, I will have photo etch and backlit film to replace this. So that's the only thing that's giving me solace when it comes to burning up that decal to put it right there. So that, having said that, that did put a little bit of a slowdown. I'm also deciding whether or not to go cool white or warm white with this. Warm white would be more era specific. In the 60s, they didn't have a lot of cool lighting yet. Everything was more incandescent than it was. If you had a fluorescent light, you might get a whiter light. But I don't think they had fluorescent tubes stuck in there, although it's possible they could have had a circular fluorescent light down in there. That certainly is possible, and that's my justification for it, because the clear or the cool white just simply looks better than the warm whites that I got. I think I'm going to put warm whites in the sides here to indicate those little computer boxes, but we're going to go with a cool white here, and then of course I've got two of the color shifting bulbs here and here, and I think I'm going to go with maybe the warm white on this side. Okay, here is our lighting for the main console. We've got the center light, which will be cool white. We've got a warm white over here, which will be on the pilot console. I don't know whether they ever said which one was pilot, which one was co-pilot. We've got the two fading lights. Now this is one of those deals where you have to leave them on. They're very close in synchronization still. I'm running both of them off of one resistor. And of course, the longer you leave them, the more they will go out of sync. But for the first bit, they want to stay locked together. They still shift through colors, but they're shifting at the same time. So this is all very temporarily wired. These ones will go. Yeah, see how that's very. These ones will go on this side, like that. And this one will go on this side, just to do a basic light. And then the cool one will go in the center. So I think what I need to do is solder these up permanently and get them ready to install in the console. Well, file this under things you should have done the first time. Things you should have done right the first time. Chase that battery out. It is a lovely piece. Take the masks off. We have a lovely front piece now. I can hit that outer edge here with just the touchiest touch of black. But really, by the time you tuck it up underneath where it's supposed to go, and yes, I did jam some fiberfill in there to diffuse the light. Spread it around a little bit. But by the time you jam that in and get it to stay, it lights up the area just fine. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. Yeah, that's gonna light up just fine. I can put some clear, like I said, on these three here. Put the decal in front of that, and then just dry brush those controls there. Should have done that the first time instead of trying to use those stinking decals. Okay, I'm almost ready to put the console in, the main console in. I put in some dividers in the bottom there to kind of corral the lighting a little bit, keep it from spilling out, particularly under the console, but just some quickie dividers. And now I'm just going to CA the bulbs in place, just on the floor here, something like that, so that it shines out that way. And then we'll be ready to pop the whole thing in place. This bottom one, which would be nice if it were in camera, this bottom one is already, still out of camera, this bottom one's already glued in. I'm just going to do the other parts of the this and then kind of knock them in. I don't want to glue the console in first and then the lighting. I think I'd rather do the lighting first. Well, it's a little bit easier to wrangle. Alrighty, I've got all the lighting in. Let's plug it in and see how she looks. Now, this center piece isn't in yet. There we go. We got lights, we got lights, we got lights. We got lights, we got lights. And this piece will go, that's a whole lot cleaner than that one with the decals on it. So that will go in the center once that has good and fully cured. And of course the neat thing about this being a set is I could run a sloppy old bit of wire. Let me pick up the camera. I'm sorry, it's going to get nauseous here for a second. But I can make a big old wiring harness coming out of the front, and then do something loopy on the back. Don't even care about light leaks back there. Alrighty, so I've just gone around the figures one more time. I've got maybe another round of those to be finished, and then the decals to go on those. The rank insignia and the Delta badges need to be put on those. I've got everything in here. I've got this final piece glued in. The center piece is glued in. Now, I think as a final act for today, I'm going to go ahead and glue this piece in so that it is curing all night, and I can get back to that in the morning, putting the balsa on the outside of that. So that will, now that the console is in and done and wired, I can go ahead and put this piece in. Morning folks, it's Thursday, it's the gateway to the weekend, and I'm back in woodworking mode today. Got the lighting kind of figured out for the main console and for the side lights today, so I'm happy about that. So now I'm going back into woodworking mode, and the first thing I did this morning was put the braces on the back wall for the removable back wall. That will sit something like this. Then I could just slide it away. Now it's going to need what they call stage weights because it's unruly, it's front heavy. So what I'm going to do is just make up some blobs out of epoxy sculpt that would look like, sandbags. So that would help. I know there are metal stage weights that they use for setting curtains and things like that, but what I'm going to be using is more of a portable sandbag approach. You could probably use cinder blocks. I don't know all of the things. Basically, you need a small portable weight that you would throw on the back here to kind of hold everything in place. So once you move this away, it's going to want to tip that way. So you would put a weight basically like that to hold it in place. And then when the time came to move it back for filming, you would either wheel it up or just get a few burly stage hands, and they would go back, they would push it back in place, and then they would either screw it in or throw clamps on it to hold it in place, and then they throw the stage weights back on it to hold it down. The very first thing I did this morning was take this whole shuttle set and glue it down to a base that would sit on the stage. This would be a wooden, whether it be plywood or what, but it's basically a platform that would allow temporary screwing in of stands or lights or supports like this without messing up the floor of the stage, or the sound stage. So when I get done with all this, I'll probably will ring the perimeter with some more reinforcing gussets, but right now I'm just laying in the supports that would go down this side of the set, because this would be the permanent side. These would be the ones that would be nailed down and screwed into the base, because this part would never move until they struck the entire set. So basically it's a measure once, cut one, measure 3 times, cut once type of deal that will allow me to go and secure this. Then I will be ready, I think, to secure the ceiling down, and it'll sit something like that. Still need to mock up some sort of ceiling for the engineering compartment. That's on the to-do list. Hey, before I take a break for lunch, it is it's an early lunch today, but this should give you a good look at where we are. I've got the sidewall all braced, and the nice thing is I can decide for myself whether or not I'm even going to paint that. I'm going to paint this junction box that I created to put all the ugly wiring in. I've got some supports along the front wall, and now I need to fabricate this front wall, but before I do that, because there's so many variables in here, I want to go ahead and put the ceiling down, because putting the ceiling down will give me the upper limit of that wall. So I think that is the next step. Good morning and welcome back to this old shuttle. It's Friday! Yay! It's the last work day of the week. It will not be the last work day on this shuttle. I've got plenty of stuff to do left. I have not even begun. Well, I have begun. I haven't seriously started working on any of the lighting yet. The studio lighting. I'm done with the lighting for the shuttle itself, and wrangling these wires is fun because they just want to jump out and do everything. Working on finishing the smaller side wall, the wild wall of the west here. Got the back structure put on that this morning. This is basically what you would slide up to here and bolt it in place. It's got half of the door. Now the door is not going to be made to be operable, because you would have to have it attached to the rest of the ship to do it. But basically you've got a panel here in a channel. You have a panel on a channel, and it would go like this, and that would be from the inside. It would look like that, and it would open the rest of the way. Now I think I think it would be narrower than that. I'm trying to remember how much of the door was visible. Let's get it on camera so we can see how much it's visible here. How much of the door is visible when it's open. You do still see a little bit of the bottom corner when it's open. I think it's a little bit less than that though. But I had to make a break here so that I could slide it in. I may end up just cutting some of that off, trimming that. But when you put it up against the other door like this, this one would slide out. Well, this is the one that's attached to the ship. But it would, did the glue dry in behind that son of a gun? May have to pry that out. Yeah, I super glued the runner in place, and that must have seeped down behind the actual plastic of the door. Let me see how much trouble that's going to be to fix. Okay, for the last major work of the week, I am working on the front wall now. And I will go ahead and tell you that it's a bit of a cheat, like a lot of the interior is a bit of a cheat over the exterior. The exterior, particularly on the model, I don't know if they were on the filming, the full-size filming set, but on the model, the dividers between the windows were very, very thin. And if I'm not mistaken, if you look in the interior set pointing out, they were a little bit wider. So I've gone without the wider because it's a lot easier to work with. If they're a little bit wider, you don't have the same problem of that being so fragile. Now, it's true that, let me get my file out here, make sure I have the right one. It's true that the, at least in the Doomsday Machine, in the shot with Decker, that this window actually opened, and I'm presuming it was one of these deals where it had something on a slide that slid up like this, and basically these two were either covered, the windows were either always covered or always all three open. The only time I ever saw, that I can recall, a difference was in Doomsday Machine, where they were all closed, and then this one slowly opened so that Decker could see the maw of the Doomsday Machine. Now, to make that happen, they would make a channel. I'm sure they had a channel here, much like they have a channel for the side doors, so that they could slide a panel in and out. But what I don't want to do is build up the thickness of these walls so much. Granted, I still have a scale issue because I can't work completely in 32 scale with the thickness of materials. So the materials are going to look a bit thicker. If I put just a block here and I block the windows and you look at it from the inside, it doesn't look too bad. It looks kind of, the thickness of that wall is about what you saw in the thickness of the set. So what I'm thinking of doing is putting a channel here that I can just set blocks in here. So if I want to show them all closed, I'll put that in there. And if I want to show them all open, then I'll take it out. I think that's the easiest way to handle that. If I tried to do a channel like this to move the middle window, then you might see that when you look at it from an oblique angle. So it would be something like this, I think. But that's neither here nor there, because what I want to do with this front wall is set it off to the side. It won't have its own structure. I mean, it'll have a perimeter structure like the other sets do, or the other walls do, but it won't have the braces, because I'm convinced what they would do is that they would just hoist the whole thing up and either screw it to this front flange like that, just screw it down or clamp it down like that, because there was really no weight from the inside pushing out on it. So it really didn't need to have all that extra bonus structure to it. So I'm going to make this very lightweight, and then it would end up resting against the wall on the rest of the soundstage. Alrighty, for the second week in a row, I am finishing a little later than is comfortable for me. I usually like being done and starting to edit the video by now, but I'm still going because I've got to the point where I have finished the front wall. Got a nice coat of the JN gray on it, and this is the window insert that would fit behind it. That is simply going to fit on the front there. Waiting for that to dry. I don't have it in place. Let me go ahead and the roof comes off just like a convertible. Let me go ahead and put the figures in place, and we will finish up our shot for the week here. Now, I have a lot of work to do yet on the windows. I'm sorry, not the windows. I was thinking of something else. I have work to do on the cameras and the lights. I've got the first big Fresnel lamp painted up the way I like it. Figuring out what's the best way to put LEDs in those to make those work. So that's all going to happen next week, as well as setting this on the makeshift soundstage that I'm going to have. I still want to go one more round of detailing on the figures before I put the decaled insignia ranks on them and that kind of stuff, because once you do that, you can't go back. So like I said, I'm just cleaning up here. I've got, once you put a little dry brushing of the gunmetal on there, the details in the camera really jump out. So I'm really happy with that. Same with the lamps. I did one of each size of the lamps and dry brushed them just to see how much detail was going to come up. Again, because I am not making an entire sound stage, there will not be a ceiling. And it's true that the roof of the shuttle would have been suspended from the ceiling of the sound stage, but I'm not going to have all of that. And there would be a lighting rig also suspended here that shines down. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is some sort of freestanding lighting rig that would sit on top of here. It would still do the same effect, but it just wouldn't be, hung from the ceiling. You got to stop somewhere. So I've got the back wall. Back wall, you put it in place. Got the back wall. I still need to come up with some sort of ceiling for that. I've got the side wall with the slidey door. That goes against the side here, hence the term side wall. And then I have the front wall, again, which is not dry yet, and I don't want to mess up my fingerprints on it. But the big news was for this week was getting the lighting done. So let me turn this around, spin this. See, the whole thing will be glued down to a stage floor, and then this will be like propped off to the side. And I also have the ramp would sit on, it's just leaned up against there. That would be the ramp that's missing from there. But let me go ahead and light up the instrument panels so you can see how that looks. There you go. And kill the overhead. And let me see. Make that so that you can see inside there. Move the camera closer. Zoom in on that. But there you go. Now, I don't care that it's spilling out. I've got light leaks all over the front of it because that would be covered up by this. And bolted down. Yeah, I might want to just do something in here for my own sake of peace of mind. But that would sit on it like that. And it would have this inside it to give you the look of the closed windows, or without it for the open windows. And then of course I've got the whole roof to go down on it, but that would sit something like that. So you'd still be able to see it even with the roof on it. You'll still be able to see some sort of detail in there until I put the lighting rig on it. And that, good friends, is where we're going to leave it, not just for this week, but for the whole year, for the entire year. I did a quick tally based on the videos from last year. I did 37 different kits. 37 different kits, and it was broke pretty evenly. I think it was 18 figures and 18 vehicles, and then 2 miscellaneous, 2 sets, like the Frankenstein lab, the Stanarts lab. It's not really a figure, it's not really a kit, a vehicle, so it's a diorama stage, and I'm counting the Galileo here as also a diorama stage. Some highlights of this year, obviously, the Time Machine has number 1. Close second is the Doomsday Machine, so we can see a machine theme there. But rounding out the figures, the 3 Sucker Punch figures that I did this year, Blondie, Rocket, and Sweet Pea. Those were all done in the last physical year, the last calendar year, sorry, in this calendar year. So it's been a heck of a year, and I look forward to doing it again next time. So until then, next week it's all about the stagecraft, the lighting, the cameras, the things like that to finish this up. So until then, I hope you have a very happy and safe New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and into next week. We'll do this all again for you in 2023. Be good to each other, be safe, be smart out there, and we'll see you here next time. We'll see you here next year. Bye.